Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona. Let us begin with the first question, Pia.
Ajahn, our first question today is from the live stream from Elizabeth. Dear Ajahn Sona, over the past 3 years, I've faced significant challenges. Firstly, my ex-partner's suicide deeply affected me. Additionally, I've experienced profound sadness due to my close relatives severing ties with me over a property inheritance issue. Despite never asking for money and always offering assistance, I feel betrayed by their actions. Now I'm grappling with unemployment after being laid off last year, struggling in a tough job market. I feel lost and isolated. My doctor prescribed antidepressants to help me cope with these overwhelming circumstances, but I am not typically someone who needs medication for depression. While I am hopeful that it could offer some relief from feeling stuck and stressed, I'm wary of their effectiveness due to severe side effects. I seek your guidance and a Buddhist perspective on antidepressants and how to navigate this tough period while shielding myself from the negativity emanating from my family and increasing depression from applying for many jobs and not getting an offer. Your insights would be very appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, basically, the approach of the Buddha, people come and tell him these situations. And what he usually does is just says, just so. This is the case that beings who you are close to sometimes die. And all of us will die. And some of them make the unfortunate choice of suicide. So what he does is describe the situation, just as you've done. You've described the situation. And instead of lamenting or saying, what a terrible thing, what a this and that, it is a terrible thing, but that's the nature of just birth in this human realm. For all beings, and including the animal realm as well, when we're born into this, so what we do is zoom back out to the big picture and look at it with a more dispassionate eye, an equanimous eye. Say, this is the nature of birth in this world. All the beings are subject to illness, aging, death, misfortune, success and failure. So your job search, you're in a situation of some failures to get a job. Alienation, because human relationships are complex and other people's understanding and emotion are whimsical. Of course, the Buddha himself was not liked by everybody. His own cousin tried to kill him, and many people were upset with him. Different people with different philosophies would have rejected his ideas and so forth. So there isn't anybody in human history that hasn't had some enemies and so forth. With the Buddha, his cousin did not succeed. With Socrates, the state put him to death. With Christ, they crucified him. These are all these people have faced these things. And how are we to face them? Mostly by accepting the reality of this, that it's a very uncertain situation. There's no security in life. You might have lots of money and insurance policies, but if a certain disease comes, then there's no hope for it. Of course, the entire world just went through a surprising experience called the pandemic, where everybody's lives were put out of the normal course of things. And it's not like that's over. There were things like world wars, First World War, Second World War, the Depression, the Great Depression, mass deaths through all kinds of illnesses and so forth. So we look straight at this and say, why should I have an attitude where this is not supposed to happen? Let me just change my attitude and say, this is what happens. One way or the other, this is what happens. And it happens to many, many, many beings. And what's certain is that all beings are subject to death and aging and could get sick. There probably are a few people who have never been sick in their lives and they live to an old age, but old age itself is a kind of sickness. So we look at it and say, we should not have the notion that we can escape from this kind of situation. We need to look straight at it and not be disappointed when others, like your relatives, are not behaving as you would wish them to. So we decide, I'm going to stop hoping and wishing that other people behave as I would wish them to. So that's their problem, their situation, their misunderstandings. It is no concern of mine. The loss of your partner through suicide is, again, what you say is each person, whether we like it or not, is responsible for the decisions they make in life, and they must have the results of those decisions. You are not responsible for it, they are. But you are responsible for your own reactions to these things. And if it has made you depressed and so forth, and you've sought antidepressants, then you may need to just rethink the whole situation and say, look, there isn't any special problem going on here. This kind of thing goes on continuously. 8 billion people on the earth, 2 billion of them are involved in just almost the same situation at any given time. We can say, there is no problem. There is no problem here. This is the nature of birth, life, and death. This is samsara. I have no expectation it would be any different. And I can suffer in this or make a deliberate, clear effort to not be concerned about this. These are, many of these emotional aspects are other people's attitudes, and you don't need to be responsible for them. They are responsible for their own attitudes. So you sit down and then fall in with good people who support you and have goodwill towards you, like us, and find more good people that are supportive. Okay, Pia, next.
Next question from the live stream is from Amulia. Can a lay person also become an arahant?
Yes. A layperson can become an arahant, it is said, and it seems that some lay people did. Certainly, in the early days before the development of the Sangha, people didn't have the opportunity to enter the Sangha, but they were very keen disciples, and they did attain an arahantship. But it is said, this is the fundamental sort of approach of the suttas, you'll see this again and again, that if a layperson attains arahantship, full enlightenment, they enter the Sangha within 7 days, or unless they die before that. So it seems that it's possible that a layperson might attain arahantship and die the next day or so forth. They don't have time to go and enter the Sangha. But basically, what they're saying is that there's no possible motivation for continuing in the lay life. If you have full enlightenment, you will simply be a monk or nun, and there won't be any other options for you. You have no attachment to the world and its motivations, and the only appropriate lifestyle for you is is a monastic one. You will hear in various people come across spirituality. They make up their own little religious ideas and so forth, and they think they're enlightened. You get all kinds of claims of enlightenment, but this is quite often, from a Buddhist point of view, this is just simply confusion on their parts and silly overestimations or just cultic kind of manipulations, egotistic claims and so forth. This is the nature of things, is that the mind becomes disengaged. It doesn't no longer participates or has any interest in the worldly situation. This is the attitude of the Theravada school and the attitudes of the Pali Canon as well. Sometimes in the Mahayana schools, you'll have some sort of idea of being fully enlightened and remaining in samsara and all this kind of stuff. This is not the nature of the early Buddhist teachings, and is not part of the Theravada school. It is simply strongly different. These two approaches are very strongly different. There are other types of schools, Hindu, Advaita, Vedanta schools and everything. Don't confuse these. These are the nature of enlightenment and so forth is clearly defined in the Theravada, and the fact that other schools use the word enlightenment does not necessarily mean that they mean the same thing as the Buddhist idea of enlightenment. If you want definitions of what the Pali Canon, the Theravada school, the early teachings of the Buddha mean by enlightenment, I have talks on the 4 stages of enlightenment. The purpose of these live stream talks is really basic education. This is what the Buddha wanted monks to do, if they could, is be an educator to people, give them good information on the basics. The Pali Canon, what the words that the Buddha left behind, is a massive collection of teachings. He did teach for 45 years and spoke a lot and in a very brilliant and systematic way. And most lay people don't have time or the inclination to read through this entire Pali Canon and carefully inspect it and digest it and so forth. So, in a sense, the role of the monks is because we do have all our life to do this, to fully understand it to the degree that the monk can. Not all monks are intellectuals or anything like that, or have the gift of gab or the teaching, or they might be shy or etc. They're worthy monks, but that's not their thing. What I am doing with this new medium, this ability to communicate with you easily throughout the world, as you see, there are people from all over the world listening to this, is to systematically give a structure of education. So refer to some of the suttas that I've given on the stages of enlightenment and what happens at each stage. And this is, I'm just passing this along. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just thoroughly trying to give a systematic account of the teachings of the Buddha. And this is something that has been somewhat bypassed in the West. We brought Buddhism, many people have brought Buddhism to the West, both Asian monks and Western monks. And sometimes there's a presumption that people that you're talking to know a lot more than they do. So I've stopped with any presumption that people know things, and I systematically want to just present an easy, direct way through this medium of clarification about all of these points. And so that's part of our goal. We hope to answer 1,000 questions, 1,000 sort of different questions. And that's the project, and then to leave them in a systematic way. So, yeah, keep the questions coming. We hope to cover all that one could hope to understand and be thoroughly educated in the basic Buddhist teachings. Yeah. Let's go on to the next question.
Next question is from, one moment, I lost my space here. All right. From Raphael in France. Dear Ajahn Sona, is there any symbolic or poetic component to the content of negative kama vipaka? For instance, where someone has physical problems, like with their heart or their vision, difficulty in relationships rather than financial problems. I wonder if you have any thoughts about the significance of Beethoven going deaf, or the Michelin-starred chef who had a rare form of tongue cancer where he lost his sense of taste.
Yeah, I think Raphael is probably a literary type and probably interested in the nature of these, the reflections on karma, because this is the content also of literature and poetry. Poetic justice, we call things. Strange connections that are made. Some people see them. It strikes some people as causal and so forth. And this is the nature of karma, cause and effect in the moral dimension. So you can more or less sort of interpret reality as kind of like a dream. You know, when we have dreams, we wonder what they mean. Some of them are just nonsense of the mind, just casual. Some of them have meaning, but the mind, you can see that the mind in the dream speaks in a different language, a very strange, makes strange connections. Because, and that is not just random, it is meaningful. Life itself can be interpreted like a dream, so reality can be approached, your daily reality life can be approached as a poem, as a novel, as a dream, and you can see the causes and effects that are hidden deep in the past, sometimes emerging. And that's probably a better way of understanding it. Modern scientific ideas are quite inadequate, like the idea of physics and so forth as an explanation of everything is quite inadequate as soon as we come to the dimensions of living beings, the psychology and the biology and the sophistication of living beings, the descriptions of how electrons behave and so forth are totally inadequate to apply to this. So we bring a sensibility, a poetic sensibility, even a drama sensibility. This is why such works like Shakespeare and so forth are so interesting to see, his analysis of characters and how things work out. He has a sense of karma and vipaka, cause and effect in the moral dimension. All of the great writers do. So yes, you can keep up with that the strange, I'm familiar with the story about the chef, the Michelin chef who had a form of tongue cancer. They wanted to actually amputate the tongue to keep him alive, but he was so devoted to his cooking that he decided that he would rather die with it. And then, out of the blue, somebody at, I think it was the Johns Hopkins University, Medical University, heard about this and said, actually, we have advanced treatments for that just very recently. We want you to come in and we want to not amputate your tongue. We want to give you treatments. And indeed, it happened, and he did lose his taste for a period of time, and then eventually it came back. So this is quite a very interesting story. It's almost as they say, the truth is stranger than fiction. Even the fiction can't quite capture what actually happens in reality. If we dismiss this kind of thing as mere coincidence and so forth, we miss the proper sense of engagement with life, especially in the moral plane. We can easily misunderstand life. We can misinterpret the dream as well. But the Buddha is very clarifying about some of these things. And so life becomes very interesting when you realize there are secondary, very subtle laws permeating the whole experience of life, and that is the moral dimension. By the way, this is the moral dimension is a big point of discussion in modern times, when there are many people who are strictly materialist annihilationists. So for them, the life and the world is a material structure. The mind is no other than the brain. It's just a algorithm working away. And when you die, it's all gone. And all of these interesting events that seem to have connections are mere coincidence that we're attributing to it. So that's a fairly common philosophy of life, but is entirely inadequate and unsatisfactory, I think. And Buddhism has especially the early Buddhist texts have great insight into these connections, and they provide a sort of satisfactory answer to it. The Buddha did say, though, that a complete understanding of this is incalculable. It's beyond the best of the supercomputers. A full understanding of all of the causalities is impossible, but you can grasp the principles, and a conviction that intentional moral actions have consequences somewhere in time and possibly in future lives as well, and that things that are happening to us now in this life may have causes rooted in previous lives. This is an important human vision, which changes the way you feel and think about life. So please continue to investigate. Yeah.
Next question is from Simonius Monk in San Francisco, California, United States. Dear Ajahn, we hear a lot about bullies and narcissists in society. At the meditation center I attend, another practitioner singles me out and displays passive-aggressive behavior in the form of disparaging comments about my practice, subtly belittling my questions, and other hurtful behavior. I believe this person knows what they are doing, and addressing them would be unproductive. I'm hesitant to bring it to our abbot. Can you advise?
Well, I am an abbot, and I've had thousands and thousands of people come through my meditation center, and it's a great spectrum. And of course, I've been in many monasteries with hundreds of monks as well. And there is a vast range of personalities. Don't think everybody in a monastery is somehow a saint or anything like this. Even amongst monastics, there are failures to understand and difficult personalities and so forth. So this is part of the situation. So the first thing is to set aside expectations that everybody in a meditation center and so forth is skilled. Say, no, the poor person who is denigrating your practice and all this is just not very skillful. You may have a certain sense of compassion for them. They are building up negative karma themselves. But if it's obnoxious, then yes, of course, I ask people to come and talk to me about their interactions, because the abbot can't be everywhere. He can't be in the kitchen watching how the cooks interact or how the guests interact, etc. So you need to know how things are going with people. Otherwise, we can't assess this. So you shouldn't feel too shy to go to the abbot and say, look, I find this very obnoxious, very unhelpful. Is it possible to have a word with this person? And the abbot there's two possible ways the abbot will respond. One is they will say that you should practice with the situation, that they won't resolve it, but that you need to practice with it. That's one option. And that will be an assessment of your personality. It may not be the right response, by the way. The other one is that they will actually call that person in and have a word with them and say, you're not here to share your wisdom or everything. This is not your monastery. You're not the teacher here. And please be much more circumscribed with your attitudes. And maybe a third option is that the both of you come into the room and he or she tries to reconcile the two, has a word with both of you at the same time and say, this is not helpful. One person is having an issue with this. Can you be a little more kind and restrained with that? It's inappropriate behavior. This is what abbots do. So if an abbot doesn't want to do that, you might be in the wrong profession as an abbot. You maybe just want to be a monk instead. So abbots have to take things in hand sometimes and straighten things out. And not everybody likes it when they do. But you're the principal of the high school kind of thing. And sometimes that's your duty to do that. So don't feel too shy to go and talk to the abbot about this, yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Arvin in Seattle, Washington, United States. Dear Ajahn Sona, what qualities make an object an appropriate subject for meditation? For example, would a fish tank be appropriate? A sunrise? A photograph? Thank you.
Yeah, those are objects which may allow you some tranquility and to go into a state of mind which is divorced from the normal worldly attractors of your mind, of sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touches. So it's not that all sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches or ideas are worldly. They sometimes are the gateway or the doorway to deeper states of tranquility. So in the Buddhist teaching, you do find nature as a help to meditation. So the Buddha is constantly advising the monks to go to the forest, monks, stay in the forest, monks, meditate in the forest, monks. There are these quiet places at the foot of trees and in caves and rocks and small cottages in the country that are helpful to this. There are also types of colors, like the color of the blue sky, the color of moss, the green moss, or the rising sun, the moon. These are famous for inducing a sense of peace and tranquility in people, and you can use them. They are called kasinas. There are 4 color kasinas, the basic colors of white, yellow, blue, red. And there are 4 element kasinas: water, air, earth, and fire. And they can be used as an entrance to more tranquility of mind. And the tranquil mind is more able to pay attention and to analyze the situation of existence itself and to come up with skillful insights into what our attitude to existence should be. So, yes. By the way, again, we have made a systematic series of explanations of these kasinas, the 4 color kasinas and the 4 element kasinas on this channel. So please feel free to look into that and get a full explanation of all of those. This is what the magic of these devices that we have, the computers and the cameras and the recorders and the imagery that we can create, is a marvelous source of information not previously available in history, Okay, so let's go on to the next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Duk Duk in California, United States. Greetings, Venerable Sir. I am an adult in my 30s, returning to college while still working full-time and acting as a main provider for my partner. How can I remain balanced and focused on my studies, my relationship, and my worldly duties? Any wisdom would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Well, the first thing is to be kind to yourself and to realize that sometimes you won't be balanced. The endless demands are like being harassed. And this is the nature of the modern world, is that everything's happening fast. We have multiple responsibilities. We're in a giant, very complex society where it's not clear how to even make a living or what you should do in order to engage in it. There are no guarantees. So, yes, you first of all acknowledge that it's a very insecure and demanding world. And we have uncertainty about whether we will succeed with this. But the next thing to tell yourself is that anxiety, lack of sleep and everything is not helpful to success. What brings success is that you actually show up at the classes. The next is that you listen to what they want you to do. I give this a lot to university students, well, any student actually, is that you don't succeed at academic processes by trying. You certainly don't succeed by being anxious about it or hoping. Wanting, hoping, trying is almost, not only is it useless, it's counterproductive. How you succeed at this is carefully asking yourself, what is it they want me to know? Because they will reveal in your courses what the contents of the tests are, because that's how it works. They don't test you on things that they never discussed in the courses. How you know this is by attending the classes and recording that, either in writing or actually recording it. And then your duty is to next go over it and see if you can understand it and remember it. That's all. It's a very mechanical process which people bring great stress, drama, and anxiety to. And stress, drama, and anxiety is completely useless and counterproductive. So you find out that, you just show up, you listen in a sane way, you write it down, you don't have opinions about it, and you show for the test, and if you know the material, you will be fine. And if you don't know the material, no amount of hoping, praying, or wishing will help you. This process of your education, hopefully that it will increase your chances for, advancement in your career and so forth, is a certain amount of reasonable gamble. You're presuming that increased skills, etc., will improve your livelihood, and this is probably the case. So you will undertake a reasonable thing. None of this needs to be filled with worry or flurry. The other thing about studying, people think that somehow staying up till 2 a.m. studying is productive. It is not. You don't get credit for the time you spent sitting on a chair staring mindlessly at a book. That's not how things are learned. You have to be significantly awake, and your attention has to be there. And it's not about the time you spent at it, it's the absorption that you did. So these are kind of qualities that people bring to it. They think, well, I'm a hard worker, I've done a lot of work, I stay up late, I sacrifice. No, a waste of time. What's happening is the mind needs to ingest the information and understand it, and then be tested on it, and that's all. And it's not a matter of being a dedicated worker or a hard worker or a good boy or whatever. It's just not part of the process. It's just that. So get it straight what the qualities are for this. And also realize, yes, we're in a very complex and demanding and changing type of society where things are a little shaky and uncertain. So in the midst of that, the best attitude is equanimity, warm wishes to your spouse, your partner, and just a fairly mechanical process of going to the school and going to work, just showing up, doing what they ask you to do, and not making any excess drama about it. This is the best attitude towards this. Okay, next.
Next question from the live stream is from Anna in Weston-super-Mare, England. I can understand how humans can be reborn into a new life according to their volitional actions, i.e. karma, but what about animals, birds, and especially insects who are not capable of intentional actions?
Well, this is gone into in great depth in the Buddhist teachings. It's interesting, if you, in the West, primarily influenced by Christianity or Islam or Judaism and so forth, they don't really have anything much to say about animals, what their fate is. Buddhism is very connected with this. Animals do have intentions, and they do have intentions, and they do have results from that. And what the basic teaching is that in the animal, it's very, very rare for animals to rise out of the animal realm into the human realm. It does happen, but it's a remote possibility because the animal realm is quite just reactive. They don't have a lot of capacity to reflect and set themselves apart from the situation. They tend not to generate types of thoughts that would promote their graduation into the human realm. So it's very rare. But you do see animals that live closely with humans, and they do sensitize and pick up sort of human attributes. And it's possible out of that, 1 in a million move up into the human realm. We can also reflect on humans that are degenerating into animalistic type behavior, where they're not reflective at all. They're just impulsive, and they're acting only on basic instincts without a moral dimension to it. That is much more common to sink into out of the human realm into the animal realm. This the tendency for animals is to just remain in a cycle of rebirth in the animal realm and occasionally rise out of that, but very, very occasionally. This vision of reality is not so strange to the modern scientific evolutionary mind. We have the evolutionary theory is that all of us have risen through the ranks, from blue-green algae to some sort of primitive beings, and through various stages until, we've, in a sense, genetically, we've all been primitive beings, even like reptiles or something. Somehow we've evolved through this. We retain some of the material from that level, and it has been a 4 billion year process in terms of the age of the Earth to get there. Maybe 3 billion for any significant biological life evolving. So it's not a strange idea from a scientific point, and the fact that we retain genetic memory, genetic tendencies and so forth from 1 billion years ago, life forms from 1 billion years ago are embedded in our genetic structures. But we do notice that, of all of the beings on the earth, the that those who manage to get into the human realm are much rarer than the animal population. And there's a clear distinction between the level of consciousness in humans and animals. Animals sometimes have incredible capacities in certain areas, but they don't seem to have the reflective capacity. And not all humans seem to live up to full human, what we would call fully human. The Buddha defines, human and the safety of remaining at least in the human realm as a moral agency rather than any other agency. It's not the fact that you walk on two legs does not make you human. Even the fact that you're born out from a human interaction doesn't make you human. It's actually the moral dimension of your life that makes you truly human. Yeah. Okay, next question.
Next question is from Upasika Gregory in Lakewood, Colorado, United States. Dear Ajahn, I am struggling with the second step of right effort in regards to sensuality, sexuality. In applying the steps of removing distracting thoughts, I'm often ending up at the fifth one, trying to wrestle them down with clenched teeth. I believe the Buddha said if there'd been another obstacle like sensuality and sexuality to overcome, he might not have made it. But I'm not a bodhisattva, just a guy and a layman. What else can I do?
Yeah, the Buddha was very clear about that it is the sensual world is very difficult to overcome. So that we have three basic problems in life: greed, hatred, and delusion. And the Buddha said the hatred and the anger is a great stain on the personality, but is easier to get rid of. The greed, the sensuality, the sexual desire is a lesser stain on the personality, but it's very difficult to get rid of. Delusion, like confusion, misunderstandings about the world, is a great stain and very difficult to get rid of. So the roots of the anger and the sensuality is also in the delusion. So they're very difficult to get rid of, but your best chance at first is to reduce the anger and the hate and so forth, because it's intrinsically very, very unpleasant. Why is the sensuality hard to get rid of? Because it can be accompanied by very, very pleasant experiences, sensory experiences, but it is a short-term reward. So we have to reflect on, say, been there, done that. How many times did I have this wonderful meal and then it's gone the next day? I can't invest all my happiness in this. Most people have no idea there's an alternative happiness to the sensory happiness. So that's the first thing that you have to convince yourself of, is that it's actually pleasant, not just boring and empty to not be involved in these sensual things. That there a great sense of calm and peace could come over you that would be very, very pleasant if you didn't have the sensual itch and need, fulfill your happiness only in the sensory experience. So that's a philosophical thing. You have to think, there's all kinds of people in history that have written books and said, there's an alternative. There's a very peaceful, there's a way of being. You go into nature and it's tranquil and away from the noise and the excitement and everything, and it's actually beautiful. Most people, when they hear that, they don't understand it. They think, I would be completely bored. I'd go out of my mind if I didn't have these things. The only way I can live is the refrigerator, or sexuality or something. This takes some thought, some thinking about it, and an aspiration to it. But expect it to be a tricky, difficult journey. Why I say the word tricky is that this is what the Buddha talks about. The mind is tricky. The Mara, we would attribute this personification, this being, is a tempter. Mara in Buddhism comes in different flavors, and one of them is your own mind. Mara can also be your own mind. And your own mind plays tricks on you. It seems to be compartmentalized, and one part of your mind has partially understood something, and another part of your mind has not, and they will be in conflict with each other. And sometimes your deluded mind will win the fight, and other times your better mind will win the fight. This is the nature of the process. You say you're not a bodhisattva. Actually, you are a bodhisattva. You're an enlightenment seeker. Maybe not the same kind of quality as the Buddha, but you are in this process, and you will go through the same stages as the Buddha did, moving towards this liberation. Liberation means that you're an entirely content, happy person that is not bedeviled by sensory addictions. And it's a wonderful, this is a very positive thing. People can't quite imagine what it would be like to be without the things that normally gives them happiness, their intimate relationships, their work, their identity in society, the various sensory experiences that they have. They can't imagine life outside of those things. But there is a very beautiful and fulfilling interior life that it is superior to those, definitely superior to those. But it's not easy to achieve, but it's worth the effort, and that's how you have to go about the effort. It has to be intelligent effort, not just brute effort. You have to understand the mind is tricky and it's compartmentalized, so it will sabotage itself. So, but be patient with that. Think, this is what I've been told this many times. Why do I think it should be any different? Nobody said it would be easy. And you say you're a normal guy, that's fine. And normal guys eventually become super normal guys. So keep on with it. Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from the live stream from Upasika Mustafa. Dear Ajahn, I heard that dependent origination is used not only in rebirth, but also in rising and falling of any experience. But the way of connecting the rings in this relationship is not clear. Please explain how the rings are related in the rising and falling of any experience. How does karmic formation end with consciousness? Or how does consciousness come before contact?
Yeah, this teaching called dependent origination. The Buddha is giving insight into this experience we call life. Especially in the 5th century BC, and in teachings that the Buddha was aware of, that were not Buddhist teachings. So at the time of the Buddha, there was a very old tradition, the Vedic tradition, and that tradition you can see similar traditions throughout the Middle East as well. In Greece and in Judaism and Egyptian teachings, and perhaps in the Eastern European areas as well, the cosmologies are very whimsical. Why things happen to a person and how you navigate in the world is in this realm of the gods. And it's not particularly causal, it's very magical. There is no system to it. It's the whims of nature, the whims of the gods. And usually it's a way of some sort of idea of placating the gods, hoping to bribe the gods in some way to give you something. It's the kind of thing you would do with a powerful neighbor. You might give them gifts that keep them from attacking you, or sacrifice a goat or even a daughter or something like this. By the way, it's not always just throwing them into a volcano. It's sometimes just marrying them off to the next priest or the next tribe over. So that people are negotiating with the universe in a very unscientific way. Buddha is abruptly introducing something new, and this is a kind of a rationality, or more what we would call philosophical investigation. He's saying that the mind and its structures have systems to them. They are lawful, and that the world doesn't work by bribing the deities. That's not how good things happen. It's actually the moral content of your life that is how things work. And the moral content needs to be investigated. How does this work? It's your intention. What's behind your intentions. And then he talks about greed, hatred, and delusion as intentions, and then generosity, kindness, and clarity of the mind, intentional. He says that's where the focus needs to be. By the way, he didn't dismiss all of these other levels of beings and so forth. But he said that's not where your attention should be, really. It's in your own life. It's in the moral fiber of your life. And your clarity about what you should be doing and what your relationship to other beings is. So that's what dependent origination is what we would call in modern times causality. And science is exclusively interested in why do things happen? What is the causal structure? Can we understand the cause behind things? How does the weather work? How does, etc. So the Buddha is very big on this. He says it's just like a farmer. If a farmer doesn't understand how crops grow, they will fail. And if they think it's because of good wishes from the deities, they're wrong. It has nothing to do with that. Do you understand how to plant, how to water, how to channel the water to the plants, when to water, what the season is, and then you won't need any superstitions. This is the same with your own mind. You understand the cultivation of the mind. It's actually a gardening process. And this is the nature of this dependent origination. This is how these things work. There is a relationship between your mind and your body. There is a causal relationship. We see this more in modern psychology, where it's a psychology of there are illnesses and so forth that have psychology as their origin, right? Psychosomatic, psycho the body, the mind, and soma the body. Psychosomatic illnesses, the illnesses of the body affect the mind, etc. So we're on the same page in modern times. We don't seem to be as sophisticated as the Buddha. He's just a genius and deeper analysis. The West is only becoming familiar with this. I must say, part of it is the effect of Christianity, where a lot of the ability to do this, to straighten yourself out, is taken away from you, and it's believed that only through the grace of God and etc. can you accomplish these things. You're somehow egotistic or deluded to think that you can fix yourself. The Buddha is very dismissive of that. He says, no, there is no other way. You must do it, and only you, and nobody else can do it for you. No other deity, no other being outside of you. Nobody can do it except you. So you must do this, and you must understand how it's done. So he supplies a whole battery of skillful means for doing this. And that is what the idea of this dependent origination is. Listen to my retreats on the meditation retreats, because I go into a very important part of this. This is primarily the importance of the 5 hindrances, understanding the 5 hindrances as part of this dependent origination. It doesn't show up on the normal, the 12 dependencies in the normal circle diagram, but it's in the suttas, and it's before the 12 o'clock, the avijja, the ignorance, producing volitions which produce consciousness, and then consciousness feeding back on volitions. That's very interesting, but a much more specific and practical advice is around this, that the five hindrances are the food of this ignorance, and that if you can reduce the five hindrances, your ignorance will diminish, and you will make new decisions in life, and that will change the way you experience life, and that new experience of life will feed back and give you much more interest in making certain types of intentions. And that's how this process works. Okay, one more question, and then we're done for the day.
Ajahn, our final question today is from the live stream from Kathy in Indiana, United States. What qualifies as being a monk per the Buddha? I know a man who claims to be a Buddhist monk, but he is not ordained, and he's teaching false dharma and not practicing.
Right. The Buddha sets it up in order to deal with this possibility of, everybody just making up claims. So if you have not been properly ordained, and there's a very specific process for ordination, there are prerequisites for ordination, which must be satisfied, or you cannot ordain. Then the monks who are ordaining you also have prerequisites that they must meet, or the ordination is invalid. And then you have to maintain a certain level of behavior, and if you step over some lines, then you are instantly disrobed and are no longer a monk and cannot be a monk for the rest of your life. It is and by the way, one of the rules which prevent a person from being ordained as a monk is to have self-ordained or pretended to be a monk, declared themselves to be a monk without proper ordination. If they do this and they go around telling people they're a monk and dressing in robes and so forth, that prevents them from ever in this life being ordained as a monk. This is a special term called parajika, or a exclusion type of activity. So it's a very bad idea for people to just think, I'm just going to do my own ordination and so forth. They're ignorant of the consequences of this. It is not okay. I mean, we understand there are laws in the West. Impersonating a Catholic priest or something like this is a legal offense. Of course, in Buddhist countries, impersonating a monk is also you can get thrown in jail for that. It happens. People think they can go on alms round, just dress up as a monk. In Thailand, you will end up in jail. They will put you in jail for imitating a monk, impersonating a monk. You must have valid ordination. It is a screening process, and then you must remain in training for the first 5 years of your practice with a qualified teacher, and not wander around declaring yourself to be, independent of these things. It's a very systematic thing. People are quite naive, ignorant of these things, and of course, people are out of their heads as well. They're always charlatans, con artists, impersonators in all kinds of areas. You'll find people that set themselves up as psychologists, and they print off a degree from some non-existent university, and they start practicing, and 5 years later somebody says, this guy he has no degree. So we have these backup systems in the West, university degrees, medical degrees, you must be qualified, etc. And you're liable to legal action if you aren't. So this is the same with Buddhist monks, the Theravada Buddhist monks. By the way, you see whole schools of Buddhism in Japan and so forth that are they're called priests, but they're not Buddhist monks. They're married men and so forth, and that's a totally different structure and order. And they never pretend to be this lineage of Buddhist monks. They are something that's part of the culture, but it's not a monk. They don't claim to be. They're senseis or priests or something like this, but they're not bhikkhus. They're not Buddhist monks, because you cannot be a married person living in a family structure and be called a monk. That's it's not possible to do those two lifestyles. So yes. Okay, well, that's the last question for today, and we will be back next week. We are in residence here at Birken Forest Monastery in British Columbia.